Then I switched to my mechanical HB pencil, which has a really fine tip to add the finest details.
Hi, I'm Anna Mason. Welcome to Nature Studio TV, the place to be to create a nature-connected creative life. In this mini class, I'm going to walk you through the process I went through to draw this 3D conker popping off the paper. Let's take a look.
I freehand drew the conker based on a photo I'd printed out in black and white. Working at the same scale as the photo meant I could take rough measurements with my fine-tipped mechanical pencil to mark in a few landmarks, matching the angles to get an accurate outline showing all the main shapes and key changes in tone or value, including the highlight patch to the conker and the spikes to the conker case, and making any adjustments with an eraser if I spotted any shapes that looked wrong. With that completed, it was time to start the tonal drawing. Using a 3B pencil at a really low angle, I gently shaded the lightest areas of the conker, being sure to work in the direction of form so that any visible pencil marks would actually be useful in creating a 3D looking shape. I left the areas of highlight as the paper colour, but shaded lightly into areas I'd be taking much darker later. Next, I applied another layer a little harder now in terms of pressure with my pencil and worked into the really dark areas so that I can begin to build the tonal range and give the conker some form, holding off from any areas that are lighter than this shade, like this little shape of highlight at the side. It's this level of detail that creates realism and can be so fun to observe. Next, I used an 8B pencil, which is softer, so easier to get a darker result without using as much pressure as you'd need with a 3B or an HB. Applying plenty of pressure to get the darkest result I could, I applied it to the darkest areas within the conker. Using a thick and smooth type of paper is ideal for being able to press hard and get this dark result. I then worked my way up the tonal range by reducing the pressure I used with the pencil a touch to work into the areas just a little lighter than the darkest tones. Again, I was careful to work in the direction of form, and it was useful that in the photo of the conker, the smooth surface contained a subtle stripy pattern when you really look. At this stage, the conker looks patchy, but next I worked on the midtones to really bring it together. Decreasing the pressure again with the pencil, I matched to the midtones, always asking myself as I applied whether the area I was working on was this tone or darker, and holding off of working into anywhere that I thought might be lighter. Now I started to make tonal adjustments. Having darkened the midtones, I worked into the darker tones some more to bring them back in balance. That allowed me to see I could darken the highlights a little, which I did with a gentle layer over them with the 3B. I then carried on layering up and darkening areas gradually, just like when I paint with watercolours, so that the conker comes together and looks 3D. Next, I shaded the darker areas of case with my 3B pencil with a light to medium pressure, working in small patches. This worked because there was plenty of mottled texture to the conker. I made sure to leave any of the spikes that were lighter in tone than this pressure I was working with. I did the same to the cross-section of the side of the case, varying the direction of form I was working in to match the shapes and textures I could see there, and leaving some gaps through to the lighter paper colour underneath. I also shaded the darker patches to the inside of the case. Going through the same process as always, I now worked on the very darkest areas, using the angle of the pencil higher to create a fine line where I needed to. Then working into the darker midtones some more, and then doing the same to the other side, starting with the darks with a harder pressure, and then building up the mids with a lighter pressure. Next, I made tonal adjustments, adding details and darkening up. Then I switched to my mechanical HB pencil, which has a really fine tip to add the finest details, starting with the spikes, defining them and adding more detail. I love getting into the flow and spending some time on this. I then used the 3B at a low angle to subtly darken a few areas, and repeated this process a couple of times. Next, I added the shadow in to give the conker some context on the paper. Then I carried on darkening and adding tiny details, including dots and lines, but then using a softer pencil on its side to add a subtle darkening over a larger area, which unifies the shapes of tone and makes the conker feel more solid. It's worth noting that when you're using graphite pencil, the darkest colour you can achieve is a dark grey, so I couldn't match how dark the colours were in my reference photo completely, but I could still make my conker look really solid and 3D.
A full video class of this conker drawing is available now with Nature Studio membership. If you've enjoyed this mini class, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, then pop over to naturestudio.com where you can find a whole heap of free resources to help you capture the beauty of nature on your paper. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.